Evan Miro stepped off the shuttle onto the rocky surface of Clithar, feeling the crisp alien air fill his lungs. The sky was a deep green streaked with violet clouds, and two suns hung in the horizon, casting long, strange shadows across the jagged landscape. He had spent months preparing for this mission, but nothing had truly prepared him for the sight of the Vrinian warriors, tall, strong, and graceful. The Vrinians moved with a precision that was almost hypnotic. Their armor gleamed under the twin suns, adorned with patterns Evan couldn't begin to understand. Each step they took seemed perfectly calculated, like a dance mixed with strength. For a moment, Evan just stood there, staring in awe. "Focus, Miro," muttered Commander Lin, snapping him back to reality. "We're not here to admire them. We're here to work with them." Evan nodded, though his attention kept drifting back to one particular warrior. She moved with incredible speed, her armor flexing with every motion, and her eyes, bright and sharp, seemed to scan the surroundings like she could see every detail at once. Evan could feel a blush rising on his face. He told himself to act professional, but the admiration slipped out in the wrong way. "That armor, it really suits you," he said, louder than he intended. "It makes you look amazing." The Vrinian warrior froze mid-step. Her sharp eyes widened slightly, and for a heartbeat, Evan thought she might laugh. Instead, before he could explain, she raised a hand and smacked him lightly on the shoulder. The sound echoed unnaturally in the thin air. Evan stumbled back, completely startled. "Ow, I meant it as a compliment," he stammered. His ears burned with embarrassment as the warrior's stern gaze fixed him like a laser. Commander Lin sighed. "Evan, I told you to watch your manners. Remember, Vrinians don't take flattery the way humans do." The warrior, whose name he now remembered was Lyra, crossed her arms and studied him carefully. Evan could feel her intense gaze boring into him. He tried to think of something clever to say, but his mind went completely blank. His usual confidence had melted away, leaving a nervous awkwardness. I didn't mean to offend you," he said finally. "It's just, I was trying to say something nice." Lyra tilted her head slightly, the motion both curious and cautious. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed him wherever he moved. Evan felt as if he were under a microscope. He wanted to retreat, hide somewhere safe, and pretend this never happened. But there was no time for that. They had a mission, and he had to start cooperating with her immediately. Commander Lin guided him toward the Vrinian training grounds, where the humans would be working closely with the warriors over the coming weeks. Evan tried to calm himself, reminding himself that mistakes were part of first contact. Still, every glance Lyra gave him made him wonder if he would ever be able to regain her respect. Over the next hour, Evan watched as Lyra demonstrated combat drills with her fellow warriors. Her movements were precise, each strike calculated, each block timed perfectly. Even when moving at incredible speed, she seemed in complete control of her body. Evan couldn't help but be impressed. He scribbled notes furiously, trying to record everything. At one point, he approached her cautiously, holding a small data pad. "Lyra, I've been analyzing your movement patterns. I think if we adjust the exosuit's joint support, you could increase efficiency by 15%. Lyra paused, glancing down at the pad. Her expression softened slightly, though she didn't speak. Evan felt a small surge of relief. Maybe she was starting to see him as useful rather than annoying. They worked together for hours, running tests and discussing strategies. Evan realized that despite the rocky start, Lyra was incredibly intelligent and quick to learn. She adapted to human technology faster than he expected, and she wasn't afraid to point out flaws in his calculations. Every time she did, Evan felt a mixture of frustration and admiration. By the time the twin suns began to set, casting long golden shadows across the training ground, Evan felt exhausted but exhilarated. He had survived his first day, learned a little about Vrinian culture, and somehow avoided another awkward encounter, at least for now. As he prepared to leave, Lyra finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. "You must learn our ways, human. Words can be dangerous here." Evan nodded quickly. "I understand. I'll do better." Lyra's gaze softened just enough for him to sense a small spark of trust. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep him going. As he watched her return to the drills, Evan realized that this mission would challenge him in ways he had never imagined. Not just his skills, but his ability to communicate, understand, and earn the respect of beings far different from himself. And somehow, despite the rocky start, he couldn't help but feel that this was going to be one of the most exciting experiences of his life. Evan woke early the next morning, the green and violet light of Clithar's twin suns filtering through the window of the human research quarters. He stretched, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today he would spend the day working more closely with Lyra and the other Vrinian warriors. He had learned from yesterday that a single misstep could lead to misunderstanding, and he was determined to do better. When he arrived at the training grounds, he saw Lyra already in motion. She was practicing her agility drills, moving faster than his eyes could follow. Her armor glinted under the sunlight and her focus was absolute. Evan hesitated for a moment, remembering the smacking incident from yesterday. But then he reminded himself that this was about teamwork, not embarrassment. "Good morning, Lyra," he said, keeping his tone professional. "I've prepared some adjustments to the exosuit data. We can test them today." Lyra paused, her head tilting slightly as she studied him. She didn't speak immediately, but her eyes were curious. Evan felt a small relief. Perhaps she was starting to see that he genuinely wanted to help rather than just talk. The day began with careful explanations. Evan demonstrated the adjustments he had designed for the Vrinian exosuits, showing how the joints could allow for smoother, faster movements. Lyra observed intently, occasionally nodding as she tried the new settings. While they worked, Evan noticed subtle signs of Vrinian culture that he hadn't picked up before. For example, when Lyra tilted her head to the side, it meant she was considering his suggestion. When she shifted her weight in a certain way, it indicated approval. These small gestures fascinated him, and he quickly began noting them in his pad. During a break, a group of younger Vrinians approached, watching Evan and Lyra with wide eyes. They whispered to each other, and Evan realized they were curious about human behavior. One of them, a small trainee with bright green armor, mimicked Evan's nervous gestures, making the others giggle. Evan couldn't help but laugh, too. It was a light-hearted moment, and even Lyra's expression softened slightly. As the day progressed, Evan and Lyra moved on to combat simulations. He watched as she and another warrior demonstrated attack and defense strategies. The movements were so precise and coordinated that Evan felt a mix of awe and intimidation. He had no combat experience, yet he was expected to contribute in his own way, through strategy, observation, and technology. At one point, Evan suggested a modification to the simulation interface. "If we adjust the timing on the holographic obstacles, it could improve reaction times by 20%, he explained. Lyra paused, considering his suggestion. She tried it, moving through the adjusted simulation with ease. Her movements were fluid, faster than before. Evan felt a surge of pride. This was exactly why he was here, to combine human ingenuity with Vrinian skill. During another break, Evan decided to approach Lyra carefully. "I want to apologize again for yesterday," he said softly. "I didn't understand your culture, and I won't make that mistake again." Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she nodded, a small but clear gesture of acknowledgement. Evan smiled, feeling that tiny victory of understanding. The afternoon was spent on joint problem-solving exercises. Evan and Lyra worked together to plan a hypothetical defense of the base against potential threats. Evan suggested technological solutions, while Lyra applied her knowledge of Vrinian tactics. Their ideas began to merge seamlessly, and Evan realized that the two species could complement each other perfectly. By late afternoon, Evan was exhausted but exhilarated. He had not only survived another day without offending anyone, but he had also started to gain Lyra's cautious respect. He noticed that she was beginning to observe him differently, not just as a human who didn't understand Vrinian ways, but as someone capable of contributing meaningfully. As the twin suns began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky surface, Evan packed his notes and prepared to leave. Lyra approached him briefly. She didn't speak, but she handed him a small data module she had compiled during the day's exercises. It contained her observations and adjustments, a silent gesture of collaboration. Evan felt a warm sense of accomplishment. Walking back to the human quarters, Evan reflected on the day. He had learned that patience, observation, and respect were just as important as technical skill. Humor and kindness, carefully applied, could help bridge the vast cultural gap between humans and Vrinians. And most importantly, he realized that Lyra wasn't just a strict warrior. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and willing to work together when trust was earned. Evan couldn't help but feel that this mission was going to be more than just scientific research. It was a journey of understanding, growth, and connection. And if he played his part carefully, he might even form a friendship that would last far beyond the rocky plains of Clithar. The next morning, Evan felt a mix of anticipation and nervous energy as he approached the training grounds. Today he would be more involved in Lyra's combat drills. Yesterday had taught him that understanding the Vrinians' ways required patience and careful observation, and he was determined not to make another embarrassing mistake. Lyra was already in motion when he arrived. She moved with incredible speed, executing complex patterns that made Evan's head spin. Her focus was absolute, and even the smallest hesitation would have made her falter. Evan reminded himself that he was there to assist, not compete. "Good morning," he said cautiously. "I've reviewed yesterday's simulations and have a few adjustments to suggest." Lyra paused and looked at him, her sharp eyes scanning his face. For a brief moment, Evan thought he might have said something wrong, but she simply nodded and motioned for him to follow. They began the day with precise exercises designed to test agility, coordination, and problem-solving under pressure. Evan quickly realized that Lyra was not only strong and fast, but also highly intelligent. She analyzed every movement, every adjustment he suggested, and adapted instantly. Watching her learn and respond to human technology was fascinating. It was clear that Vrinians, despite their warrior reputation, were also curious and open to new ideas if approached respectfully. As they worked, Evan tried to remember all the small cultural cues he had learned. A tilt of the head could mean curiosity. Crossing arms might indicate careful consideration. Even the rhythm of their breathing told him something about their mood. It was a complex language, far different from human gestures, but he was beginning to understand it. Midway through the morning, a challenge was introduced. The Vrinians set up a simulated obstacle course, designed to test speed, decision-making, and teamwork. Evan was paired with Lyra, which meant he would have to contribute in real time, combining his technical knowledge with her combat expertise. "Remember," Commander Lin called out, "this is about coordination, not strength. Use your skills together." The exercise began, and Evan felt a rush of adrenaline. Lyra moved ahead, leaping and striking with perfect timing while Evan monitored the holographic interface controlling the obstacles. He adjusted panels, timed doors, and redirected simulated hazards to give them the advantage. At first, the coordination felt awkward. Evan struggled to keep up with Lyra's speed, and she occasionally paused, waiting for him to act. Gradually, they found a rhythm. Evan learned to anticipate her movements, and Lyra started to rely on his technical input. Each success built confidence, and by the end of the course, they had completed it faster than any previous pair. Evan felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he sensed that Lyra was beginning to respect his abilities. During a short break, the younger Vrinian trainees gathered around again, curious about the human who could work alongside their warriors. Evan demonstrated a small adjustment on the simulation interface, showing how a single change could make the course more efficient. The trainees watched intently, their eyes wide with amazement. Even Lyra allowed a faint smile to appear, acknowledging his skill in front of them. After the break, Evan and Lyra moved on to tactical planning exercises. They were presented with a scenario, defending a research outpost from a potential threat. Evan proposed strategies using human technology, while Lyra added insights based on Vrinian combat training. Together, they merged their approaches, creating a plan that was clever, flexible, and highly effective. Evan realized that this collaboration was more than just completing exercises. It was an exchange of perspectives, a blending of two very different species. The Vrinian strength and discipline combined with human creativity and adaptability formed something powerful. He understood more than ever why humans and Vrinians had to work together to thrive in the universe. As the day drew to a close, Evan felt exhausted but satisfied. He had survived another day without missteps, and he had made tangible contributions that even Lyra seemed to respect. More importantly, he had begun to build a bridge between human and Vrinian ways of thinking. As he packed his notes and prepared to leave, Lyra approached him. She didn't speak immediately, but she handed him a small holographic display showing improved simulations from their exercises. It was a silent gesture of collaboration, and Evan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Walking back to the quarters, Evan reflected on the day. He understood now that success wasn't about strength alone, nor was it about avoiding mistakes. It was about patience, observation, and mutual respect. And if he could continue learning from Lyra and the other Vrinians, there was no limit to what they could achieve together. Evan smiled to himself as he entered the human quarters. The day had been challenging, yes, but it had also been rewarding. He felt that the journey had truly begun, and that the bond he was forming with Lyra and the Vrinians could change the future of their mission, and perhaps even the future of human-Vrinian relations altogether. The next day, the peaceful rhythm of the research base was shattered. Alarms blared and lights flashed red, signaling an unexpected intrusion. Evan's heart pounded as he rushed to the command center, where humans and Vrinians scrambled to respond. The base's sensors had detected a rogue alien faction approaching the perimeter. Their motives were unknown, but their technology was dangerous. Lyra was already there, her posture sharp and alert. She scanned the incoming data with quick, precise movements. Evan felt a moment of nervousness. This was the first time he would see Lyra in an actual crisis, not a simulation. He knew he had to contribute, even though he wasn't trained for combat. "Evan," Commander Lin called out, "we need your help with the systems. Keep the defenses online and manage the interface." Evan nodded, swallowing his fear. He moved to the holographic console and began monitoring the base's energy shields, weapon systems, and automated drones. Every second counted, and mistakes could be catastrophic. Lyra barked orders to the Vrinian warriors. Their movements were swift and coordinated, almost like a single organism responding to her commands. Evan couldn't help but marvel at their efficiency. Despite the danger, they remained composed and precise. The rogue faction advanced faster than expected. Evan noticed a weak point in the barrier system. "Commander, we can reroute the auxiliary power to reinforce the east wall," he shouted. Lin quickly acknowledged him. Evan's hands flew across the controls, rerouting energy and activating defensive drones. The shield shimmered stronger in the east section, holding back the first wave of attacks. Lyra glanced at him briefly, her expression showing both surprise and approval. The attackers were relentless. Their ships hovered near the surface, firing energy pulses that could damage both humans and Vrinians. Lyra led the warriors in countermeasures, moving with unmatched speed and skill. Evan coordinated with the automated systems, timing defenses perfectly to minimize damage. For a moment, panic threatened to take over. Evan's hands trembled and the interface alarm screamed at him, but he reminded himself of what he had learned over the past days: patience, observation, and quick thinking. He focused, adjusting the shields and rerouting drones with precision. Lyra moved closer to the command center, guiding the warriors to cover vulnerable points. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, but every action carried power and intent. Evan realized that their combined efforts, human technology and Vrinian skill, were stronger than either could be alone. As the rogue faction pressed their attack, Evan noticed another weakness. A small supply corridor had been exposed, due to the shifting defenses. "Lyra, Corridor 3 is open!" he yelled. Lyra reacted instantly. She signaled two warriors and moved to block the corridor. Evan watched as they neutralized the threat with speed and efficiency. He felt a surge of admiration and relief. The battle continued for what felt like hours, though it was likely only a few minutes. Evan worked tirelessly, coordinating systems, monitoring shields, and advising Lyra on technological adjustments. She adapted to his suggestions immediately, showing that she trusted his input even in the heat of the moment. Finally, the rogue faction retreated. The base remained intact, thanks to the combined efforts of humans and Vrinians. Silence fell over the command center, broken only by the faint hum of systems returning to normal. Evan slumped into his chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Lyra approached him. She didn't speak at first, but she extended her hand in a gesture of acknowledgement. It was a small, simple act, but to Evan it meant a great deal. After the awkward first day, the smacks and misunderstandings, they had fought together and succeeded. Respect had been earned on both sides. Commander Lin smiled at Evan. "You handled yourself well. Your knowledge and quick thinking helped save the base today." Evan allowed himself a small smile, feeling proud but also humbled. He had faced a real crisis and had contributed meaningfully. It wasn't just about being human or Vrinian. It was about cooperation, intelligence, and trust. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting golden and violet hues across the base, Evan took a moment to look at Lyra. She was cleaning her armor, calm and composed, yet he could see the respect in her eyes. Their teamwork had survived the test, and something unspoken had begun to form between them. A bond built on trust, understanding, and shared effort. Walking back to his quarters later, Evan reflected on the day. Fear had threatened to paralyze him, but action, guided by knowledge and observation, had turned it into strength. He realized that human adaptability and ingenuity were valuable, even in a world of powerful alien warriors. And he understood that Lyra's respect was not given lightly. It had to be earned through effort, intelligence, and mutual trust. Evan knew that challenges would continue, but he felt ready. With Lyra and the Vrinians at his side, he believed humans could thrive on Clethar, not just survive. And for the first time, he felt that his mission was not just about technology or research. It was about forging connections, bridging worlds, and proving that cooperation could overcome even the greatest threats. The morning sun rose over Clethar, casting green and violet light across the rocky terrain. Evan felt a quiet excitement as he made his way to the training grounds. Yesterday's attack had tested everyone, but it had also shown the strength of human and Vrinian cooperation. Today, he was determined to build on that success. Lyra was already there, preparing for the day's exercises. She moved with her usual precision, her armor gleaming under the twin suns. Evan approached cautiously, not wanting to make another misstep. "Good morning, Lyra. I've reviewed yesterday's data, and I have some ideas to improve our response systems." Lyra's sharp eyes scanned him, and she nodded once. No words were needed. The gesture meant she was listening. Evan felt a small sense of relief. The tension between them from the first day seemed to have eased, replaced by cautious respect. The exercises began with a series of coordinated drills. Evan and Lyra worked together to navigate complex obstacle courses, combining his technical adjustments with her combat expertise. For the first time, Evan noticed how smoothly their efforts were blending. He suggested minor changes to the timing of holographic obstacles, and Lyra adapted instantly, moving with even greater efficiency. During a short break, the younger Vrinians gathered around. They were curious about Evan's role, asking questions about human technology and decision-making. He patiently explained how simple adjustments could make a big difference, and the trainees listened intently, fascinated by the combination of human and Vrinian skills. Even Lyra observed, seemingly proud of how he handled the situation. The afternoon brought a new challenge, a simulated emergency scenario designed to test decision-making under pressure. The command center projected an incoming threat to the base, requiring rapid coordination between humans and Vrinians. Evan was in charge of the systems while Lyra led the warriors. "Focus on timing and coordination," Commander Lin instructed. "Your ability to communicate quickly will determine success." The simulation began, and Evan's heart raced. He monitored energy shields, directed drones, and adjusted obstacle patterns in real time. Lyra barked orders, and the warriors responded with flawless precision. At first, they struggled to find a rhythm, but Evan quickly realized that clear, calm communication was key. He adjusted his commands and focused on predicting Lyra's moves. Slowly, they began to move as one unit. By the midpoint of the exercise, Evan noticed an opportunity to improve their strategy. "Lyra, if we reinforce the eastern corridor with the auxiliary drones, we can block 2 incoming attacks simultaneously," he suggested. Lyra considered the idea briefly, then signaled the warriors. They moved with perfect timing, neutralizing the simulated threats efficiently. Evan felt a surge of pride. For the first time, he realized that his input could make a tangible difference in Vrinian operations. After the exercise, Lyra and Evan reviewed the results. She handed him a small holographic tablet containing her observations. "You've improved our coordination," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "Your ideas are useful when you focus." Evan smiled, grateful for the acknowledgement. It wasn't just praise, it was respect earned through effort, intelligence, and teamwork. He realized that his role on Clethar wasn't just to observe. He could contribute meaningfully to both human and Vrinian success. Later, as the twin suns began to dip below the horizon, Evan noticed a moment of quiet between Lyra and the younger warriors. She was guiding them patiently, demonstrating techniques while encouraging their questions. Evan observed silently, realizing that her strictness was balanced by care and mentorship. The more he watched, the more he understood that strength was not only measured by power but also by guidance and collaboration. Walking back to the human quarters, Evan reflected on the past few days. He had entered Clythar nervous and unsure, but he was leaving each day more confident and capable. Lyra's respect, while cautious, had begun to grow, and he had started to see the Vrinians not just as warriors but as allies and teachers. As he prepared for sleep, Evan thought about what tomorrow might bring. The recent events had proven that humans could adapt, learn, and contribute in ways that even powerful alien species valued. And if he continued to earn trust through patience, intelligence, and cooperation, he believed that the human presence on Clythar could become more than just research. It could become a partnership. He smiled to himself. The first awkward interactions were behind him, and a new chapter of collaboration and mutual respect was beginning. The journey on Clythar was far from over, but Evan felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that humans and Vrinians together could overcome anything. The following morning, the air on Clythar was filled with anticipation. Today was a special day. Humans and Vrinians would hold a joint ceremony to recognize the success of their collaboration during the recent threat to the base. Evan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had come a long way from the awkward human who had stumbled through his first day with Lyra. The ceremony was held in the central courtyard of the base, surrounded by the jagged rocks and green-violet sky. Vrinian warriors stood tall in formation, their armor gleaming, while human scientists and engineers, including Evan, lined up respectfully. Commander Lin gave a brief speech highlighting the teamwork, courage, and intelligence that had helped defend the base. Evan's eyes searched for Lyra. She was at the front of the Vrinian formation, standing straight and composed, but there was a subtle acknowledgement in her posture that made Evan's chest tighten with pride. She had fought, trained, and collaborated with him and the other humans, and now her respect was visible, not just in her eyes, but in the way she carried herself. After the speeches, it was time for individual recognition. One by one, humans and Vrinians were called forward for commendations. When Evan's name was announced, he stepped forward nervously. A holographic display projected their successful strategies, showing how humans and Vrinians had worked together to protect the base. Lyra met him at the center. She didn't smile widely, but her expression was firm and approving. She handed him a small data tablet containing her notes from their exercises and the defense simulations, a gesture of recognition that meant more than words ever could. Evan accepted it with a nod, grateful and humbled. During the ceremony, Evan couldn't help but glance at the younger Vrinian trainees. They were watching him with wide eyes, curious and impressed by the human who had contributed alongside warriors like Lyra. He realized that his actions, his careful attention, and his willingness to learn had earned not only respect but also inspiration. The trainees whispered to each other, pointing at him and exchanging amazed glances. After the formal recognition, the ceremony turned into a celebration. Music unique to Vrinian culture filled the air, accompanied by human harmonies that blended surprisingly well. Food and drinks were shared, and laughter echoed across the courtyard. Evan noticed Lyra standing near him, observing the celebrations quietly. Tentatively, he said, "You know, Lyra, I never thought we'd make it this far when I first arrived. I was clumsy." Lyra tilted her head slightly. A motion Evan had learned meant curiosity. Then, in a rare and almost human-like gesture, she allowed a small smirk to appear. "You've improved," she said simply. "Your actions matter now." Evan felt a rush of pride and relief. The awkward beginnings, the misunderstandings, and the nervous mistakes had all been worth it. They had worked together, survived crises, and now stood recognized not just as allies, but as a team capable of great things. As the twin suns began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, Evan looked around. Humans and Vrinians mingled, shared stories, and laughed together. He saw that even small gestures, like sharing knowledge or offering guidance, had the power to bridge worlds. He realized that strength was not just in combat ability or technology, but in cooperation, understanding, and trust. Lyra approached him one last time before the celebrations ended. She handed him a small holographic note with a simple message: "Continue to learn. Continue to improve." Evan accepted it silently, understanding the weight of her words. It wasn't just recognition, it was encouragement, a reminder that this partnership was only beginning. Walking back to the human quarters later, Evan felt a sense of quiet triumph. He had come to Clithor nervous, unsure, and awkward, but he was leaving the day with confidence, respect, and the beginnings of a strong friendship with Lyra. The human presence on Clithor was no longer just tolerated, it was valued. Evan thought about the journey ahead. There would be more challenges, more simulations, and undoubtedly more surprises. But he felt ready. Humans had proven that their ingenuity, adaptability, and willingness to learn could complement even the mightiest alien warriors. And with Lyra by his side, he believed they could achieve far more than he had ever imagined. As night fell over the rocky plains, Evan looked out at the stars visible through Clithor's thin atmosphere. He smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. The humans and Vrinians had taken their first steps toward a partnership that could shape the future of the planet, and perhaps even the galaxy itself. The following days passed with a rhythm of training, collaboration, and quiet learning. Evan felt more confident with every exercise, and Lyra's trust in him continued to grow. Their teamwork had become seamless. Humans and Vrinians moved together not just as colleagues but as partners, each learning from the other's strengths. One morning, Evan and Lyra were assigned a joint project, designing an advanced defense system for the base. This task required both human innovation and Vrinian strategic thinking. Evan focused on the technological framework, creating systems to detect and respond to threats with speed and accuracy. Lyra contributed her combat knowledge, suggesting tactical adjustments that would maximize efficiency in real-life scenarios. Working side by side, they debated, experimented, and problem-solved together. Each idea that Evan proposed was tested against Lyra's strategies, and each of Lyra's suggestions was adapted to integrate human technology. The process was challenging, but it brought them closer, building mutual respect and understanding that went beyond words. As the twin suns rose, casting green and violet light over the rocky plains, Evan realized how far he had come. The nervous, awkward human who had accidentally offended Lyra on his first day had grown into a capable collaborator. He understood Vrinian culture better, respected their discipline, and had learned to adapt his own methods to work in harmony with theirs. Lyra observed his work silently, her expression calm but approving. "You have improved greatly," she said. "Your ideas and actions now carry weight." Evan smiled. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without you." The project continued over several days, and when it was finally complete, the defense system surpassed expectations. It combined human creativity and adaptability with Vrinian strength and strategy, in a way that was unprecedented. Commander Lin reviewed the results and expressed his admiration. "This is exceptional work. You've proven that humans and Vrinians together can achieve more than either could alone." Evan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. But more than that, he felt pride in the bond he had formed with Lyra. Their early misunderstandings, awkward moments, and cautious interactions had grown into mutual respect, trust, and friendship. It was clear that the success of this project was as much about cooperation as it was about technical skill. In the quiet moments that followed, Evan and Lyra walked together across the training grounds. The twin suns cast long shadows behind them, and the wind stirred the rocky plains. Evan reflected on the journey, the first awkward encounter, the smacks and misunderstandings, the crisis that had tested them all. Each step had led to this moment, a partnership built on patience, learning, and shared effort. Lyra looked at him for a moment. "You have learned quickly, not just about our ways, but about how to work as one with us. That is valuable." Evan nodded. "I've learned that humans have a lot to offer, but we also have much to learn. Together we can achieve more than either of us imagined." They walked in silence for a while, the only sounds being the soft hum of machinery in the distance and the whisper of the wind over Clithor's jagged rocks. Evan felt a profound sense of connection, not only with Lyra but with the entire Vrinian community. They had come to understand each other, to respect each other's strengths, and to work together toward a common goal. As night fell, the sky lit up with stars shining brighter than Evan had ever seen. He paused, looking at the vastness of the universe above. He realized that this mission had become more than a test of human ingenuity or alien collaboration. It was a testament to what could happen when different species set aside differences and worked toward a shared purpose. Lyra stood beside him quietly, and Evan felt a rare sense of peace. Their journey on Clythar had begun with mistakes and misunderstandings, but it had grown into a story of success, respect, and cooperation. Humans and Vrinians had proven that when intelligence, skill, and courage were combined, incredible things were possible. Evan turned to Lyra with a small smile. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" She nodded. "The beginning of much more. Together we can face whatever comes next." With that, they walked back to the base side by side. The human and the Vrinian warrior, once awkward strangers, now partners and friends, ready to continue their work, explore new challenges, and build a future together on Clythar. Evan knew that no matter what lay ahead, he had found not just allies but companions who respected him for his mind, his effort, and his willingness to learn. And in that respect, he found his purpose, not only as a human among aliens but as a bridge between worlds, proving that cooperation, understanding, and courage could overcome any obstacle. The twin suns set, and the base glowed softly in the evening light. The adventure was far from over, but for the first time Evan felt truly confident that humans and Vrinians could face the future together. And in that quiet confidence he felt the warmth of accomplishment, friendship, and hope.